So, something I've been hearing a lot lately is whether or not you should train with high volume or low volume. As an advanced natural bodybuilder and someone who's an online fitness coach, I see this topic brought up a lot, and I'm gonna give my reasons behind both and which one I think would be best. And as someone who's been training for over a decade with higher volumes, I can tell you that I have made more progress in the past year doing low volume than I've had in multiple years doing higher volumes. Now, I think there's a lot of reasons behind that. And I think the biggest one was that I was just doing a lot of junk volume. And I think this is a problem with people who do higher volume approaches is that they're just doing a lot of volume that's not really getting them anywhere. There's only so much volume you can do in a given session, and any more than that would just be considered junk volume. And I think that's important to note because I feel like a lot of people think that volume is the driver of hypertrophy, when in reality, it's really just progression. But the problem with thinking that a higher volume approach is going to make up for the lack of effort in your sets is really just false because even though that might work for some people, I feel like for the vast majority of people, this might not work so well. I know a lot of people who have been training for years with higher volumes who look the same. And the reason behind this is because they never learned how to train to failure, which I think is the common denominator behind the low and high volume because it doesn't really matter which one you do. Because if you're not training with enough intensity, all those sets are kind of meaningless. So, as a coach, one thing I teach my clients to do is to train closer to failure. Because, yeah, I could throw a bunch of volume at them, but what is that really going to teach them? I think it's important that we teach people the principles behind what drives muscle hypertrophy and what can cause them to grow. And it's not just throwing more volume at them, it's teaching them, hey, you know what? You need to train closer to failure. You need that intensity in your sets. Thing I've noticed with my clients is that when I've lowered their volume, the one thing they always tell me is that since their volume is so much lower than what they're used to, they're forced to push harder. They're forced to train with more intensity. And I think this is a really good thing. But it kind of like puts in their mind that, you know what, I only have a limited amount of sets to do, so I better get the most out of these sets. This is a heavily nuanced topic, and it's not as easy as me saying, oh, high volume is better or lower volume is better. I think each one can be appropriate for any given person based on their experience and what they feel comfortable in the gym. But I do think that there should be more of a push that training intensity is probably the number one most important factor in a given program rather than just throwing around volume. So that's my take on the matter. If you agree, disagree, let me know in the comments down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I hope you found this video helpful. Follow for more and